At the end of the day, it's a simple tubular receiver, blowback operated, open bolt submachine gun. It's perhaps less Gucci than the Lanchester or the German MP28 that it's based upon, or something like a Steyr Solothurn, but it's nowhere near as agricultural as the Sten gun. So there's no reason. I mean, I suppose my only hesitation comes from it appears to have quite a lightweight bolt and a weak mainspring for what it is, but that's speculative on my part. Got quite a slick, this one's loose, but has quite a slick disassembly system. Although the rear sights are typically optimistic out to 600 meters, they are still an aperture. So yeah, I don't think there's anything terrible about the gun. The 8mm Nambu pistol cartridge is not great, not by 1930s, well, certainly by 40s standards. Typically blowback submachine guns in 9mm are running a hotter load than the original 9mm Luger cartridge to make sure that they function reliably. This thing is running a pretty weak pistol cartridge, quite frankly. It's almost like having, it's not quite this, but it's almost like a 380 ACP or a 9mm Makarov, running a submachine gun with 9mm Makarov, which you wouldn't ideally want to set out to do. That's my impression anyway. It's known as a bit of an anemic cartridge, let's put it that way. Whether it was adequate for reliable functioning, I don't really have enough data on. In terms of its sort of impact, well, there's a reason why we use 9mm Luger today as the world standard for a sort of warfighting or law enforcement or self-defense cartridge, because it's a great combination of capacity, penetration, and all of that. This is the early version, of which there aren't that many. So most of the ones you would encounter, in theory, would be the redesign from 1944, without this massive underbarrel tube thing which mounts the bayonet. So let me just grab one. So it's the standard Type 30 Arisaka rifle bayonet with that vaguely samurai sword point, the hooked quill on. This was the basis, by the way, for the patent 1907 British bayonet, because we acquired some Arisakas at one point. Anyway, so you can see how it fits. The lug is on here. This really feels like an afterthought. This is a lovely, relatively lightweight, slim forend, and they've gone and stuck a huge heavy tube on the bottom. Not that heavy, but every bit of weight counts, especially on the end of a weapon. A mortise for the bayonet at the back there, and then a ring. Instead of going around the muzzle, it's going around this thing. Now, that is, admittedly, I don't have a full mag on this, or even a mag at all, but it's not awful. Perhaps a bit of reassuring weight in a way. And unlike some of the Japanese bayonet-equipped weapons, I'm looking at you, Type 99 machine gun, where not an awful lot of the blade protrudes beyond the muzzle, or the flash suppressor certainly. This gives you a fair bit of reach and penetration as a bayonet platform. So most nations deprecate the bayonet on a submachine gun. They either don't introduce it at all, or in the case of the Mark II Sten, I've never seen a single photo, video clip, or read any memoir that ever mentions a bayonet on a Sten gun. I just don't think that they were fitted. The Japanese absolutely did fit and use bayonets on anything that they could fit a bayonet to. I'm surprised there isn't a pistol mount for a bayonet. The Type 11 machine gun. Very funky looking to begin with this weird pistol grip buttstock assembly at the back. Very chunky, well, not too chunky as a receiver goes, certainly not for an early machine gun, but what is very chunky is the finned, extremely heavy barrel they put on this to deal with heat. It's relatively short, interestingly. So modern machine guns, the trend is, well, all firearms actually, a shorter barrel is seen to be more effective. Well, preferable, not necessarily effective, depends on the velocity of the cartridge, but they went for a very, very early days. So 1922, this is another Kajiro Nambu design, by the way. He's involved in all of the weapons we're looking at today, one way or another. Big, chunky, long stroke gas piston, what you would expect for a machine gun, even today, although not always. The really unique thing, though, is this feed mechanism. So instead of the people may be familiar with the Type 96 or Type 99 light machine gun that replaces this and is much more of the Second World War Japanese machine gun, but these are still around. That uses in fact, people think it's based on the Bren. I'm sure the Bren would, well, not so much the Bren as the CZ family of machine guns that result in the Bren on the British side. They would have looked at that in the development of those. That they have a conventional, albeit top-mounted, curved box magazine. This thing has this insane, quite frankly, in retrospect at least, hopper system. Bear in mind it's 1922. We haven't really decided yet what a quote-unquote light machine gun should look like. They are thinking about rapid reloading here, and it's actually very clever. So it's not a Gatling-style hopper where you just pour the rounds in and they funnel their way into the breech. It is designed to take straight out of the webbing, effectively, or the leather equipment, a 5-round, 6.5mm Arisaka rifle round in a clip of 5. So you would have ammunition, a unit of ammunition, a feed device that you can put straight into a rifle, of course, that's what it's designed for, or straight into this. Now on the rifle, of course, you take the clip away. On this, the whole thing, hopefully you can see this, goes in flat. And if you're wondering what the capacity is, it's 30. So 5-round clips adding up to 30 rounds total. So just the same as a Bren or indeed a Type 99 machine gun. But I'd say it automatically makes reliability more questionable. It is having to shove in the clip for you as it operates and fire the rounds in turn and then drop the clip out of the bottom. So to encourage reliable feed, let's say we've just thrown one in out of desperation because we've run out of ammunition. We slap down our top, I'm going to call it the top cover, it isn't really. That provides enough pressure on top to hopefully allow a reliable horizontal feed into the gun as it cycles as it normally would. Now, of course, a bit like a Bren or a Type 99, that means that the sights have to be offset to one side. On this, it's offset to the right, which makes for some interesting ergonomics. If I can potentially somewhat demonstrate that. Now that cheek weld puts your eyes directly behind the sight, and that is because this this buttstock isn't just sort of sinuous in profile, it is offset in plan as well. And that's to put your eyes behind the sights where they need to be. Fascinating design. A valiant effort, I'd say, for 1922. It's lighter than a Lewis gun, put it that way, which is sort of a benchmark light machine gun from that era, but not as light as, of course, the things that came later. And designs from the 1930s pretty much blow this out the water. And I do question the reliability of that feed system as well. This is the Type 94, radically different from the earlier Type 14, perhaps what viewers will think of more so as the Nambu pistol. And it had shortcomings in terms of being big and awkward increasingly by modern standards, what were then modern standards. Having started off as a commercial offering from Kajiro Nambu and his new company in 1934, which is 2594 in the new Japanese calendar, hence Type 94. I believe it's officially adopted, although not until a couple of years later, 1937, but we don't see mass production until the 40s. By which time, 44, I think, is when the mass bulk, most of them are getting made. Certainly they're the common ones that survive today, made from that era, and the quality has already taken a severe dip in the quality of manufacture, which is a problem across the board, of course, for nations that are struggling during the Second World War. The initial users that are receiving these when they're militarily adopted are aircraft and vehicle crews, because it's slim, compact, and just a better proposition than a big old chunky Type 14. The US in the Second World War, assessing this weapon, absolutely, the Ordnance Department regarded this as a dangerous pistol, and here's why. So the reason it was regarded as dangerous, certainly by the US military, is we have this exposed sear bar on the side. Now the Luger has a not so dissimilar arrangement, but it's covered, substantially covered by a square plate on the side. This thing isn't. So we've made ready we can, in theory, we press here, can't really activate it any other way, but if we press here, that click, that's the hammer being tripped. So you can absolutely fire the gun by just pressing this, essentially this button on the side, it's a lever really, but on the side. You don't need to touch the trigger. So by modern standards, absolutely it's unsafe. By period Western standards, it was unsafe. Perhaps even by period Japanese standards, it was unsafe, but clearly it was approved for service, so perhaps not. It does have a manual safety, which bars that trigger bar. So there's no way to fire it when the manual safety is on there, which of course it always should be. So provided people follow correct drills, there should be no problem. However, what this causes is a series of myths, memes, whatever you want to call them, the most egregious of which is this was designed this way because the Japanese were always surrendering or knew they were going to have to surrender. So they designed a pistol that allowed them to pretend to surrender and then fire the gun, which I'm sure a lot of you are already thinking doesn't really stack up. Like if anyone's pointing a gun at me, even if their finger's not even if their hand isn't on the grip and it's like this, if I'm an American GI, I'm probably going to shoot you for continuing to point your weapon at me when I've told you to put it down. Let's put it that way. Then we have the idea that it happened accidentally, that Japanese soldiers trying to surrender would go, oh, and accidentally press it. I think that's equally implausible. But yeah, certainly the idea that it was designed as such is a little crazy. I mean, perhaps, like as I suspect is the case for the infamous Garand ping, maybe it happened once, and as humans we love to take a single data point and turn it into reality. So, but we don't. Point is, we don't have any reliable or any stories, even any directly attributed stories of this thing actually being unsafe. However, I have to concede that the ability to press the side of your gun and have it go off is definitely not a good idea. If there's a major failing of these weapons we've looked at, it's the submachine gun and not getting enough of those into the supply chain quick enough, because that must have lost a few firefights, which of course has an effect at a higher level. But I don't think we need, it's probably a PhD into what extent, A, to what extent Japanese weapons are better or worse than any other nation across the board, and B, in terms of how much that actually mattered to how the war went. These are very big questions that we'd like to, I think we often like to gloss over and just look at the kit and go, well, this is terrible, therefore they had terrible kit. We have to be careful because people could say that about things like SA-80 and assume that the British Army isn't up to scratch, which is absolutely not the case.
Thanks for watching. For more from BFBS Forces News, like and subscribe to our channel.